Hi, this is Israel Anderson. Welcome to another Table Talk. Now, on our last Table Talk, we looked at Luke 11. And Luke 11, 1 through 13, Jesus is just eviscerating Yahweh for his treatment of the Hebrews during the Exodus. And I think the most stunning thing for people was to see that the Lord's Prayer is actually a prayer for protection from Yahweh. Now, when you start to discover things like this, it can be, quite unsettling. And I saw a lot of criticism from the last episode. What I find interesting is that 100% of everyone that criticized that last table talk, not one single person actually addressed the content of that episode. Not one. I understand that the things I'm talking about can be very unsettling, and I've got a lot of people that think they're doing the right thing, trying to talk to me about, pulling my head in and not teaching this stuff. But this is what the Bible says. This is what Jesus said. And if you want to address what I am teaching, you have to address what I am teaching, not just send me, vitriolic messages saying I'm a Gnostic that's going to hell. I'm not a Gnostic at all. Today we're going to look at even more. And over the next few years, because it's going to take a long time to unpack all of this, we're going to see Jesus constantly, over and over and over again, telling you that Yahweh is Satan the adversary, the devil, the adversary of humankind and the kingdom, the one that has caused all of the trouble that we're in today. But you've got to address the content. You can't just say rude and nasty things to me. You've got to address the content, because that's what I'm doing. And as you look through all of your commentaries and things, you'll find that no one has talked about a lot of these things. And we've got more to talk about today. In fact, let's just get right into it. But to the Founders Club members, people that have decided to pay $25 or more a month to support what I'm doing here, thank you very much. I mean that really sincerely. This is not an easy job. And, it's been 11 days since I recorded the last one. And the weight, the criticism that one receives from doing this is off the charts. It's nothing like this I've ever seen. People treat me like I'm a Satanist. It's rather ironic, isn't it? So please, if you can, support me by becoming a Founders Club member, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment here. But let's now talk about John, specifically John chapter 6. And here Jesus feeds people with bread and fish. And we've talked about this story, but we haven't gone through the story. We've talked about it because there's such a contrast here. A contrast in the way Yahweh has treated people and the way Jesus treats us. And that's why Jesus is doing this. Remember, he can't break the law. And what's the first commandment of the law? He can't come out and say Yahweh by name is not God, because he would break the law and his entire purpose here would be for nothing. So he describes him. And he shows us the opposite example. Here he makes this massive contrast between the bad shepherd and the good shepherd. Let's dive in. So John 6, 1 through 9, and we're going to read here through verse 15, and then we're going to skip to 28 and 34, okay? And as always, go through your own Bible with all of this. And this is just copying and pasting the Bible here for you to read. There's no shady business going on here. I don't need to. Jesus clarifies this in so much detail. We've got to get it. We've got to listen to Jesus. The people that criticize me that quote the text back to me, never quote Jesus. Never quote Jesus. It's always something else. You've got to listen to Jesus. It's so important. Don't you follow Jesus? Don't you love Jesus? Don't you consider that his words overrule everything else? I do. I could wax on for a long time. Let's get into it. So John 6, verse 1 and onwards. A large crowd was following him because they were observing the miraculous signs he was performing on the sick. So Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Jewish feast of the Passover was near. Then Jesus, when he looked up and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, said to Philip, "Where can we buy bread so that these people may eat?" Now Jesus said this to test him, for he knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, 200 silver coins worth of bread would not be enough for them, for each one to get a little. One of Jesus' disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "Here is a boy who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good are these for so many people?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was a lot of grass in that place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. So we could extrapolate this. If it's 5,000 men, in these times, they counted the men. We come up with the 2.5 million Israelites out of Egypt number from the 600,000 that were counted, and we extrapolate from that. So what would we extrapolate here? Well, not everyone's going to be here like during the Exodus, but let's say we could probably add 50% to that number. 7,500 people or thereabouts are here. Men with their sons and other children and some wives and daughters perhaps. Probably not quite 10,000, but somewhere between 7 and 10,000. Then so there's a lot of people to feed. You can imagine today, if you were catering for 7,000 people, that's going to take an enormous amount of effort and money. Then Jesus took these loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed the bread to those who were seated. He then did the same with the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were all satisfied, Jesus said to the disciples, "Gather up the broken pieces that are left over so that nothing is wasted." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with broken pieces from the 5 barley loaves left over by the people who had eaten. Now, when the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus performed, they began to say to one another, "This is certainly the prophet who has come into the world." Then Jesus, because he knew they were going to come and seize him by force to make him king, withdrew up into the mountainside alone. Let's unpack some of this. There's an awful lot there, but if you've been following all these table talks already, you've made a whole bunch of connections to what is actually going on here, right? All right, so let's start with this. A large crowd. I need to use my other thing here because this trackpad just won't work. I need a new computer. So a large crowd was following him. The parallels and mirrored images to the Exodus in John 6 here are immediately apparent. Yahweh led people into the wilderness while people followed Jesus into the wilderness. So, you've got Yahweh going and persuading people, "I'm going to take you to this wonderful new place." And kind of, in a way, Jesus is saying that, but they're following him. They're just going because they want to follow him. They're not being led into the wilderness. They're following somebody. They were observing the miraculous signs he was performing on the sick. Jesus is going around healing people. How many people did Yahweh ever heal? Well, this is interesting, and I thought I'd better just have a little bit of a refresher here. Depending on how you count, it's either 0, 1, 2, or 3 people that Yahweh healed in the entirety of the Old Testament. But none of these is from Yahweh's own hand, like Jesus was healing people. And we don't have to really go looking for a miracle by Jesus. They were all over the place, right? That's why they were following him, because he was just performing miracles left, right, and center. Then Jesus, when he looked up and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, said to Philip, "Where can we buy bread so that these people may eat?" Jesus doesn't wait to be told of the need of the people. This is so important. He's a good shepherd. He's taking care of the sheep. You know, your Father knows what you need before you ask for it. Oh, is that talking about the Exodus? Yes. There's so much in the New Testament from Jesus' own lips addressing what Yahweh did during the Exodus. Jesus doesn't wait to be told of the need of the people. The people aren't complaining for food. The people have no expectation that Jesus should provide any food. As the good shepherd, Jesus just recognizes the need himself as any good father or caretaker would. He distributed the bread. Jesus does something Yahweh never did during the 40 years in the desert. Even though the people cry out for it, for bread, I have to rewrite that sentence. Nobody was crying out for food in this situation, but Jesus simply saw the need and met the need. The same with the fish. The Hebrews cried out for fish in the desert and were punished for it. Here, Jesus was never asked for fish at all, but yet again, he sees the need and meets the need. Filled 12 baskets with broken pieces from the 5 barley loaves left over. Without being asked, Jesus feeds the masses and there is plenty left over. Jesus is showing us that with him and his Father, there will be total abundance. They say this is certainly the prophet who is come into the world. Well, Yahweh used constant acts of evil to force the crowds to worship him or die. The good shepherd does good deeds and the crowd thinks he's a messenger of the Father. They were going to come and seize him by force to make him king. Well, Yahweh demanded the people worship him as their God or die. Jesus' good fruit leads the people themselves to elevate Jesus to king without a word from Jesus' lips about any such thing. I mean, the contrast is really quite remarkable here. Now, Founders Club members, thank you so much. We are trying to raise $2,300 a month, which is minimum wage, so I can do this every day. We have gone up from last week. We were at $625 last time. Now we're at $750. Thank you so very, very much. What's that? 5 of you that have subscribed. Really appreciate that. And so we are now 1/3 of the way towards the goal, and that makes me really happy. I want to do this. These are our latest subscribers. So all of you, thank you very, very much for all of your incredible support. Guys, you have done wonders here. I didn't know if this would work or not, and it looks like it is, and I'm extremely grateful. So thank you very, very much. You know, when somebody just wants to do something, but how do you do it? You know, how do you find a way to not do anything else in your life, but just study and teach the Bible to people? And you are all enabling me to do that. So thank you so very much. All of your names are in the ticker below, along with lots more as well. Please add your name. Go to Anderson Discoveries and start a subscription. And, you know, it's not really like, what do I get for my subscription? Well, you know, you do get some perks. You get to see the videos before everybody else. But really, it's just about getting the gospel of the kingdom out to as many people as possible. And I appreciate that. We'll never do it with like YouTube ads. It's never going to be that popular, but you are doing it, and I appreciate you very much. Okay, so now we are down in John 6:28 through 34. Should we just read through this? We didn't actually read through it before, did we? No. So then they said to him, "What must we do to accomplish the deeds God requires?" Jesus replied, "This is the deed God requires, to believe in the one whom he sent." So they said to him, "Then what miraculous sign will you perform so that we may see it and believe you? what will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, just as it is written. He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Now you got to wonder, like, were you here 5 minutes ago? Because we kind of just did all this, you know. Then Jesus told them, I tell you the solemn truth. It is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but my Father is giving you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the one who came down from heaven and gives life to the world. So they said to him, Sir, give us this bread all the time. So what's going on here? Let's start here. What must we do to accomplish the deeds God requires? Jesus replied, This is the deed God requires, to believe in the one whom he sent. Jesus contrasts Yahweh's requirements of obeying the 613 laws. Now, a lot of Christians think, what do you mean? There's 10 commandments. No, there's 613 commandments, actually. Now, you can just Google that and see. I mean, it's just, there's not 10 commandments. That'd be something, 10 commandments. There's 613 commandments. Nobody can do that except Jesus. You're lucky that you don't have to, you know, I see all these Torah observant Christians. Good luck with that. 613 laws. You're not going to fulfill the law. It's just not going to be possible. No one ever has. No one ever will, except Jesus. So Jesus contrasts Yahweh's requirements of obeying the 613 laws plus the spilling of innocent blood of sacrifices with his Father's requirements of simply believing in him. It's important to recognize that Jesus had not yet been crucified. Yet Jesus is giving this advice to them anyway. I say that because there's some that go, well, you know, it's a new covenant in his blood. He's been crucified and risen. No, this was before that. This was before the crucifixion, before the law had been fulfilled by any man. Something to think about there for my Torah observant friends. Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, just as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. And I'm quoting here from Exodus 16:4. Then Yahweh said to Moses, listen carefully, Yahweh says to Moses, I am going to rain bread from heaven for you. Okay? Yahweh said this from his own lips. I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. Okay? And the people will go out and gather the amount for each day so that I may test them. Will they walk in my law or not? Hey, this guy is such a narcissist. The problem with this is that it is directly contradicted by Jesus himself. Remember, Yahweh said to Moses, I'm going to rain down bread from heaven for you. And then Jesus says, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but my Father is giving you the true bread from heaven. Oh, wait, what? There's a lot to say about Jesus casting shade on Yahweh here. If Yahweh was Jesus' Father or himself, would Jesus say this? Well, obviously not. If Yahweh was the good guy, there's no way whatsoever that Jesus would remotely call into question the manna that Yahweh gave to the Hebrews. Yahweh said, I'm giving you manna from heaven. Jesus comes along and says, nuh-uh. No, he didn't. And in fact, I'm the true manna from heaven. I'm the one that can give you sustenance. You can't weasel your way out of this. People don't talk about this whole dynamic here, the connection of these passages. I've never seen anyone talk about them before. So I can't find any Christian commentary to explain away the obvious problem here. Yahweh said he's giving them manna from heaven. Jesus said, no, he did not. Can you explain that? Remember, if you want to criticize what I'm teaching, you have to address what I'm teaching, not just call me names. We continue. For the bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Yahweh lied about the manna from heaven. Yahweh doesn't feed the Hebrews bread a single day of the 40 years in the desert, even though they cry out for bread and are murdered for doing so. Jesus sees the need of the crowds and meets their need without anyone ever having to even ask. Jesus says he is the true bread that has come down from heaven. You know, when I noticed this early on, that here is Jesus calling out Yahweh as a liar, just like he does in John 8:44. The lying murderer from the beginning, the Genesis, is how Jesus describes Yahweh in John 8:44. Here, again, he calls Yahweh a liar. This is powerful stuff. And, you know, if you want to debunk what I'm teaching, have at it, but you have to address all of this. You can't just pretend it does not exist, because it does. The contrast between the capabilities and the heart of Jesus compared to the heart of Yahweh is unmistakable. Jesus shows Yahweh to be a fraud. Jesus calls Yahweh a liar. Jesus says he is the true bread of life that has come down from heaven. Jesus backs up his claims by actually manifesting bread for the people following him. Jesus makes the distinction between Yahweh the bad shepherd and himself the good shepherd. Now look, I encourage the conversation. There's something going on here. More and more people, every video I make, people watch these Bible studies and they realize, you know, there's something here. And I watch people share it, whether it's on X, Twitter, or Facebook. And you see all the comments, their friends are leaving, and they too don't address the content. They'll raise up another passage. Oh, you're forgetting this passage and this passage. We're not forgetting them at all. But we're right now talking about this, and you don't seem to have any response to it. Yahweh is Satan the adversary. Jesus told us this over and over and over again. We have to start listening to Jesus instead of our pastor, instead of our favorite Bible teacher, instead of Christianity. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, not Christianity. And it doesn't matter how many people believe in it. In fact, you know, 2.3 billion Christians in the world. It's the largest religion, the largest group, movement of people the planet has ever seen. Was that what Jesus was talking about when he said that broad is the path that leads to destruction, and many be that find it? Jesus said when he returned there'd be a remnant, not a revival. So we need to consider what's really going on here. We've been hoodwinked. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think at this point it's sufficient to say that we've won the argument. We have so much more biblical support for the position that Yahweh is Satan than anything to the contrary. If you want to prove that Yahweh is the Father, then be about it, because nobody has done that yet. It's all just been taken on assumption. And that needs to end now. I want to pray a prayer with you, just real quick. First of all, maybe you can just listen to this prayer and not participate yourself, just in case you don't know what I'm praying. But hopefully you will hear this prayer and go, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And then rewind it maybe and pray it with me properly. This is how it goes. Father, we ask that you would remove any imposter spirit from us, that you would fill us with your Holy Spirit, that you would lift the veil from our eyes. And we ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Short and sweet. We need to ask the Father to lift off the veil from our eyes. We need to ask him to remove the imposter spirit that you have probably invited in. He will if you ask him. We've seen it over and over again. You know, the 21 CR down there on the title stands for 21st Century Reformation. We need to go back to a simpler faith with Jesus at the center. We need to read the Gospels. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching this. And if you haven't watched the other primary videos that we've made in years gone by, like Two Gardens and a Snake, or Humanity, Evidence of Our Origins, Who is Yahweh? What's the other one? A Conversation Between Pilate and Yeshua. If you haven't watched that one, that's a very interesting study. There's lots more to come. And thank you again to all of the Founders Club members who have signed up for a subscription. You guys are freaking awesome, and I literally could not do this without you. So please jump on and join these people. Help me to do what I'm doing here. Thank you so much. All right. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.